Hey everyone, welcome back to Secret Sonics. This is episode 89 with Daniel Grimmett. Daniel Grimmett is a consultant for music producers, helping them get better at the business that they have to run. And I thought this would be an interesting topical interview to have for you guys. Something a little bit, left of center than we usually do, but hopefully this will give you some insights of some best practices to, do business as a music producer, how to get yourself more visible online, best practices of how to do that. We talked about what content people make, alternative revenue streams, and why you might want to launch an online course, and it's not the reason you think you might want to launch it. So there's just tons of stuff in here that are really, really cool and interesting takeaways about also, how to use social media. I could go on, but let's just get into the interview. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Daniel Grimmett here on Secret Sonics. You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Daniel Grimmett. Daniel is a consultant who helps music producers and audio engineers grow their brand and land more artist clients online. Daniel serves both indie and major label music producers. A couple of my guests have actually mentioned Daniel on the air, and we've been following each other online on social media, and we started chatting, and we ended up having a whole call on Zoom, and I said, you got to come on the show and talk about some of the stuff that you do, because I think it's really important for my listeners. So with all that to say, welcome to Secret Sonics, Daniel.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Pumped to be here. I've enjoyed the past episodes, enjoyed listening to the show, and started as a fan, so it's dope to be here.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, the audience a little bit about your story. Who are you, and how did music play a role in your life, and how did that lead into what you're doing now, which you'll kind of give us a brief description of. Yeah,
for sure. So my introduction to music was my parents were musicians, not professionally or anything. Well, my dad was a band instructor, I think high school band back in the day before doing other things when I was a baby. But they both basically had instruments laying around the house. And so I got into it and really young. And like a lot of us probably listened to the show, played in bands and performed. And through that, got into recording and did about a year at recording school when I was, I think, 19 or 20. And interned at a studio, pretty classic upbringing, right? And it was traditional, rock records, Americana, stuff like that. It was awesome to finally get to be in a studio with all the fun things and tools and microphones and gear, and had a great mentor on that side of things. And simultaneously, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. We have an awesome music scene. There was a cool music scene at the time. It's much bigger now, but at the time, it was still hard to kind of make a living solely engineering. Only a few guys in town were doing it. And so on the side, I worked kind of in the corporate world, marketing sales for about 6 years, from 18 to 24. So I always had this dual path, right, of business and music. And I would kind of go full time a little bit for 6 months and go back and work a sales job for 6 months, stack some cash, go back, you know the thing. And it finally sort of came into fruition when I moved to Los Angeles when I was 24. And that same recording mentor said, "Hey, man, if you don't do it now, you probably won't ever do it." And he drove me out there. And
who is this mentor, by the way?
His name's Chris Garges. He will be phenomenal for the show, by the way. I'll link you guys up.
Okay,
Chris Garges is great. So yeah, he drove me out there and introduced me to some people he knew, and I started getting interviews at some of the big studios out the East, West, and all that. It wasn't terribly hard to get the interviews, but what I found was that they're like, "Yeah, Dan, you're cool, but we don't really have anything. Recording rock bands and stuff isn't just what it used to be," and they recommended that I start learning how to produce and build tracks and kind of become a Nashville calls it track guys. In LA, you're just called a producer. Yeah. So I started doing that. I played, dabbled with all the instruments, and knew enough to put tracks together. And I would go on Craigslist back when that was a thing and hit up every little studio in LA advertising themselves. And I linked up with a guy named Drew Alsbrook, who had a home studio in the Valley called People's Music. And this guy was charging a hefty day rate, doing his own thing. And he was doing all the different pieces. He'd hop on and play guitar on a track. Then he'd program drums for it. Then he'd record the artist. Then he'd mix it. And I was like, oh man, this guy's making $600 a day just doing this stuff in his home, and he's covering everything. And I'd never seen that before. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I tied that back with my background in the corporate world, which is online marketing for real estate. And I did a lot of various things. And I was like, oh, we could do this for people online. They don't need to really be in the room. His clients are never here, only to cut the vocals, And he was kind of the inspiration for it. I don't know if he even knows that. I need to reach back out to him, but he was the inspiration.
Maybe now
for
we'll find out.
Yeah, and he was Jewish as well, and he was so busy he couldn't get his weekends off, the Saturdays off. He's like, I can't work on. Is that correct? Saturdays is the day.
Yeah.
So I started filling in all his Saturdays, and he would actually just give me all the weekends actually, because he's like, I need to. I think he played in a band at Temple, wanted to do that stuff, and he was just so busy that he's like, hey, you take my weekends. I'll pay you the full rate. I'm not even going to take any money off of it. You take my weekends. And that was kind of my first introduction into doing that kind of work. And so I started a company in 2012 called Songwriting Team, which was not the first online production company. There were some like demo companies and stuff, but we were the first one that kind of connected with artists, and it wasn't like kind of a cheesy demo company or whatever. It had some cool stuff going on, and grew that into a team with a lot of projects and a lot of producers and artists and different talent. And I found my comfort zone in more of the business side, getting the clients, running the business, helping the producers get up to snuff as far as getting projects done quickly. And then we got into sorry, this is a lot. I always say it's going to be the short version, right? But
it's not bad. This is good, man.
We got into
it's a solid length right here.
Yeah, it's just a link. Yeah, it's been a decade. So there's a lot of stuff that went on. We got into buying other companies, sample pack companies. We bought Woodshed Audio from Jonathan Roy, who's a phenomenal mixer. You should definitely have on here too. Big Nashville mixing guy. That rolled into Make Pop Music, which is a brand that a kid named Austin Hull runs now, and just did a lot of like experimenting with building online businesses and stuff like that in the music space. And naturally that led to, in 2018, getting into kind of the business development side of things and helping producers, usually, mainly commercial producers, pop, hip hop, electronic guys, really prepare them for the modern landscape and help them build, long-term careers in this internet-driven music industry that we have now. So obviously most of their goals most of them have the goal of being on big records, but in the meantime, they need to pay their bills. And I run Dark Label with a partner named Mike Monty. He's a veteran producer, and he kind of handles the industry side, and I handle the online biz dev side. So that's where we are now.
So does somebody hire you to like help them, get better with like business for their, production services, or do they hire like Dark Label?
Yeah. So Dark Label is kind of just the name of the company. I mean, I started Dark Label. The name has been there for a while, but the new form is a recent thing. So as you notice, my website is just still under my name.
Right.
But yeah, I promoted myself as Daniel Grimmett, but the business was behind the scenes was called Dark Label. And now we're taking that more public, and Dark Label, maybe by the time this comes out, will have its own site and all of that.
Nice.
But yeah, essentially the way I describe it to people, it's a mix of, we have different ways that we work with people, but the primary way that we're moving into is, think of it as a business school, but the teacher helps you build the business along the way, So you're learning stuff, but the learning stuff is just the foundation. Though we spend a lot of time, generally up to 6 months to a year, actually implementing it based on where they're at and their experience level, making it happen. And everything from coaching to making intros to people to, with Mike, getting people in on writing camps, like just various things based on what their goals are. We have a couple different levels. It's taken 3 years to really kind of hone in the offer and figure out what makes the most sense. We don't really have anything else to model this business after necessarily in our industry. So it's been a lot of experimenting. It's been fun, and we've taken probably I would guess a couple hundred producers through the process and finally have a grip on it.
Yeah, I love the idea of like that personalized, it's like, business school, but like it's personalized and you're coaching them for their specific business. So as they build their own business, they're also learning all these other long-term skills. It's a cool combo.
There's stuff that everyone needs to know. And then that you can just deliver in videos. That's the stuff everyone needs to know. But then the customized stuff, there's no way around it, but it's just jump in the trenches and do it together. And, business is nuance, right? So it's very hard to teach in a course. Although there's certainly some foundations and specific techniques or business skills that someone can learn in a course. When it comes to implementing it and how is this going to work for you specifically, that part just needs a bit more of a hands-on process. Yeah.
So you say you've worked with a couple hundred music producers, audio professionals, getting them to be better at their business. What would you say is the most common pitfall of music producers who are looking to grow their businesses?
Oh man, there's a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't have to say one.
Yeah. So basically, if we just kind of go through the pillars of what we do. So who we work with are producers that are good at what they do. We don't teach production. That we sort of take. All the clients come through an application process. We have usually a couple of calls with them first, make sure it's a fit. It's a lot of referrals, stuff like that. So they're at a level where they're good at what they do. Some of them have a full-time business. Some of them may have been, more veterans, had credits in the past, but now business is a little tough right now. Maybe they lost a manager or agent and they have to do it on their own. It could be guys that are really talented, but just haven't worked with clients. They're able to, but they haven't yet. Maybe they were in sync, or maybe they were an artist performing act themselves. And they want to come in and work with artists and launch sample packs or whatever they want to do, monetize things. So it's a little bit of a widespread, but they're all producers that know what they're doing. They just need help with the business side. And the pillars, we kind of run them through. The first is how to become more valuable in the marketplace, right? There's a lot of saturation. The rise of, we talked about this a little bit, the rise of the DIY artists, right? A lot of artists doing stuff on their own and how to navigate that. So just helping producers become more valuable in the marketplace. A lot of times that's helping them learn other skills outside of just producing, and how to have a successful release, how to help the artist get traction, and just becoming more valuable in the marketplace. There's a couple different levers that we have, value levers that we use. The second is getting into how can they earn their maximum rates. A lot of producers just have really bad economics. They're doing a bunch of projects for little money. And because they're doing a bunch of projects, they can't really do their best work. Yet they have to take on all these projects because they're not charging enough. And then they just kind of stay stuck in that cycle.
It's hard to break through that also, someone who's kind of been down that road a bit.
It's almost why it's sometimes easier starting with newer guys, not newer to they can produce, but newer to the business, because their naivety almost is a benefit, because there's yeah, cool. If you want me to charge that much, great. That's what I'll do. And they don't know anything else. And sometimes they have an easier time than the guys that are stuck in their ways and trying to break through that. But it's economics, right? What are the projects going to be better if you do 4 of them a month and you can really put, songs, like not 4 projects, like albums, but 4 songs a month are going to sound better than if you try to do 40, right? So if you can't hit
unless
the
you're doing
economics,
sync, right?
Yes, different thing. Yes, yeah. Sync, you got to be really good and really fast. Crank it out. But working with artists where it's that relationship, you've been paid for it and now it's your time to do your best work. That's the economics have to work, and a lot of producers just can't dial in the economics. So we look at their offer. We look at, are there ways that they can increase the value of what they do, the rates of what they do, while decreasing the time it takes to do it and still get good results for their artist. Then we look at the communication side. A lot of producers aren't, great with how they communicate with artists. And it's kind of cool. Yeah. What's your budget? Great. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. And there's just a negotiation, or they try to close projects over email or something. It's I think mixing in some one-off services, that's not that uncommon, but with producers where you're very involved in the project and the career, you need to be good at the communication process and showing them a communication process, helping them develop their own that allows them to connect the dots better, so that when they throw out this rate that's a little higher than they've charged in the past, it makes sense to the artist. And then the last thing is, creating demand. So now that we have the economics dialed in, they become more valuable in the marketplace. Well, more people have to know about them. So we look at the stuff that we can control first, which is building an online presence. And a lot of people, one of the